Welcome csc200 class. This is ex2-pirates-1982, Pirates team from 1982 that I remember fondly. And it's just a little database that we're going to work on. I actually took it from an Excel file, and we're actually going to import an Excel file, although it won't be an Excel file. It'll actually be, you can see it right here, it's a CSV file, if you've ever seen that. It's comma separated values, I think the CSV means. And it's going to be zipped, and you could leave it zipped, and you could just download it zipped. You don't have to extract it, so we're going to do that. You also may want to click on the instructions, and this may be changed by the next time I look at it, but I just wanted to have instructions here. So there may be some minor changes to them by the time you see it. So what you're going to want to do first, you're going to watch this video, and it'll probably be only one video that you'll have to watch. Hopefully I'll get this done in one video. And what you're also going to do is you're going to go to Cloud9, and I already logged in Cloud9 to my workspace, not to my workspace, but into my Cloud9 account. And make sure you open your 200 workspace, not your 230. If you have another class, the website design class, make sure you open your csc200 workspace and hit open. And there it is. And if you see it green, you might see the little circle there for a while, but if it's green, it's okay. And you can open up to see what's there. And what you should see here, and I guess it's still opening up, and notice there is no kind of there's no console down here, there's no bash window while that's opening up. If you wanted to go to window and just go new terminal, it'll open that terminal window, and once it's open, you'll see your username and kind of the $ there. So that may take a little bit to connect, because remember, it is connecting to a database within Cloud9. And when you see it looking like this, everything should be kind of set up and ready for you to go. Notice you'll see another file in here. Hopefully it'll be in there. And what this is, and you could even double click on it, I wasn't sure how to have you submit your answers when we do these queries, because I have no way of knowing if you just, I don't want to just run the queries in the video and you just watch them and fill in the answers. And I don't want you emailing sheets and all that. And I thought it'd be easier that way. You could just have a text file in here. You could put in the answers and just close it when you're done and save it. That way you don't have to upload it, submit it, anything. Your answers are going to be right there. So we'll see how that works. Just thought I'd try that this time around. Now when you have your terminal open here, and again I went to window new terminal, if you're not seeing that, remember this $ is kind of your prompt. So after that, all that you have to do here, you don't have to do the MySQL. What you should be able to do is you should be able to run just the PHP myadmin, and then it's -control CTL, and then a space, and then install. They don't have a start, they have an install. And then just hit return or enter, and then you should see starting MySQL. So you don't even have to do the start MySQL. And the important thing is when you do this, you're going to see this link here, and that's going to be your link, and this will be the same link, and it'll ask you to log in possibly, or if you've logged in recently, you might not even have to log in, but I'm going to click on that. And I'll hit open. It'll open it in a new tab, and there it is. And it's actually come. I didn't actually ask me to log out because I was just in it, but typically you'll just have your username and you don't have to put in a password. So you'll get to this, you'll eventually get here once you just hit enter, if you just put in your Cloud9 username and no password, and you've done that before. Now what we're going to do here again is we're going to first go back to my Warren and make sure, I'm just going to download this, and you could just download this right to your downloads if you want to. You could just click here. At the very least, you could just download it. And it's just getting downloaded into my downloads. And you could just leave it there if you want to. And then I'm going to go back to PHP myadmin. Remember, that's what this is. This is PHP myadmin. And we're going to go to import. And we're going to import that file. Now, it's not a database file, but it is a CSV file. So it should kind of get converted to a database once it gets imported. So we're going to go to choose file, and I could go right to downloads, and I could see if I could find it. There it is, that one right there. And again, you don't have to unzip it. You could use the zip, and I'll hit open. And notice when I did that, it recognized that it's a CSV file, and the only thing you have to change is if you scroll down this line here that says the first line of the file contains the table column names. So make sure you check that, because whatever, just like in an Excel file, the top row are really the column names. So you make sure you want to check that so it doesn't treat them as part of the database. So we have them in there, and the way I created it, it is. So make sure you check that. That's the only thing you have to check in here, and everything else should be ready to go. So you should be able to just hit go, and you should see green, and that's good. Now it'll have kind of an odd name when you do it, and I'm going to show you how to change the name. So there's our it says CSVDB, so it didn't use it. It wasn't a true database file. So if you click on here, you can see it says table name, and we're going to change both of those so they're a little more descriptive. The database is going to be, and if we go back here, you can see we're going to change the database name to pirates-1982 and the table name to players. So we're going to do this part here. We're going to change that. So we're going to go back to phpMyAdmin, and I'm just going on the database right now, and I'm going to operations. And this is where you could change the database name. And you have all these things here: remove database, create table, database comment, all this kind of stuff. Rename database to. This is where you're going to rename the database, and we're just going to call it Pirates. And you can see this one is coming up here. I'm going to use the -1, Pirates, in all lowercase, Pirates-1982. And that's all we have to do is just hit go and hit OK. And you can see there it got changed, but the table name did not. So I'll show you how to change the table name, because we don't want it just called table name. So we'll go into table. You could click right on the table and go into table name, and then again you have to go to operations. And this is a little tricky. You might find this a little tricky because there's rename table, and we're just going to call this players, lowercase players. And there's players, and we're just going to call players. But notice it also says table name here, and it says, these two places it says table name. You could change all them, but here the only thing I think you have to do is if you hit go. Let me go in here again and see what's happening now. It's saying it doesn't exist. I had this problem before. Try doing this. Just click on this and make that go away. If you have any problem, just go there and call this players, and then call this players. I think it has to do with the order that you do it, but I think if you do that now, I'm going to do it again. I'll do this one, and I'll do this one, and eventually you'll see the players there. That's just a little tricky with the table name, that you just kind of do those three areas there. So again, if you go on the table and you go to operations, again, what I'd recommend is just making sure you change all three of these, and just keep hitting the go button until it okays over here, because it won't show it over there. So everything seems okay now. So if I go back to structure, I shouldn't see any error. I should be okay with the table name. Let me just double check. I'll go to browse, and everything looks okay now as far as our tables. Again, the important thing is you want to see that there. So what we're going to do next, now that we have that changed, and again, that's a little tricky, and I did it another time where I just did it twice, and it showed up okay. So if I see something else that I'll do differently, I'll update it on the sheet. Now also, another thing I'm going to do here is I'll go back to the instructions, and now that we have everything named, we didn't do anything yet. A couple things we're going to do here is we're going to add a column to this. So I'm going to go back in here. We're going to add a column because we don't have an ID. We don't have a unique ID. It just starts with first and last name here. We're going to add an ID. So where we would do that would be under structure. Structure is going to show our columns, or basically our fields. And if we go down to the bottom, it'll say add one column, and we're going to do it at the beginning. And that will we're going to add our ID columns. We're going to hit go. We're just going to call it ID. We'll just go ID lowercase, and then length, we'll just use 11. 11's a default that it'll use for ID sometimes, but we use 11. And I'm going to scroll over until I find AI, and I'm just going to check AI. So that's all I have to do is check AI and make sure that this is ID. Now it's an integer, so it's going to be an AI means it's going to auto increment. It's going to create new values based on our database. So that's all we have to do. I'll hit save. Now there's the query that what I did actually, it wrote the SQL into it, but if I want to browse, I could actually see what happened. I could see that now I have ID names, and it actually set up the ID names based on the way the database was created, which I think was based on games, because you can see it goes 162 to 158 and it keeps going down from there. So it did it based on games. Somehow that's the way the original database was created, and that's the way it made the IDs from there. So Johnny Ray is ID 1, and so on and so on and so on. And we'll talk more about IDs later and how to change them, and even how to make like a 001 ID and things like that. So for now, we're okay with that. So we added our column. Now let's go back to our PDF here. So we did that. And one thing I want to do is I just want to check, since we're talking about games, let's find the players that played in the least amount of games. I'll go up here to games and I'll just click on games. And that kind of did it. You could see ascending, meaning it's going from the lowest value first. And you see there's some guys that played in like one game. Wayne Nordhagen, Tom Griffin, these guys played just in a couple games. So we're going to delete some files from our database. Now, just so we know, let's just go, before we do this, I should have did this first, but let me go back to browse. Just so we know, we have 43 total in our database, 43 people on our team. So just be aware of that. And what we want to do is get rid of anybody who had less than 10. We'll keep this guy. We'll keep Cecilio Guante. We'll do everybody less than 10 games. So we'll keep Cecilio. So he had 10 games. We'll keep everybody. We'll cut everybody who are only in less than 10 games, because sometimes when they go to the playoffs or something, they have to cut down the roster. So we'll cut down everybody less than 10 games. So to do that, we could just do this. We could just kind of, if I wanted to, I could just literally check these and hit delete. And they even have a delete thing down at the bottom. They have a delete button. I could literally do that. But what I'd like to do, and also if I just wanted to find the ones that are less than 10, now obviously I could see them right here. But if I want to write a query, and you should get used to queries, I'm going to go select all from players where, and I'm going to use games. Now remember, if you click, you could just type G. You could do that. And I'm going to do less than 10. And I'll put a semicolon. And I'll just run my query. And remember, if you ever want to run it again, you could always just do like a Control C or Command Z or Command C, just until we find. I still haven't found a way where it'll put the last one we did here. One thing though, they have a retained query box, which will keep the query box and it'll show your results right below here. So we could try that and see how that works. I'll just hit go. I may say, what happened? Well, it's actually down here. So you just have to remember that you did that. So here's the people that were in games in less than 10 games. So again, I could delete these, but what I am going to do is I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go and I'm going to do something called delete. And just be aware that delete, there's no asterisk here. And if you're unsure about how that works, I recommend always going to W3 Schools and going to SQL and then just looking for delete. And it'll show you delete, and it'll show you that it doesn't use an asterisk, just like that. So you can look exactly how it does. Delete from customers. You could use the table or the database name, but we're just going to use the table. So what I'm going to do here is delete from players where games are less than 10. And this is permanent, so you got to be careful with this. So I'll hit go, and it does warn you because you're deleting things. And now they're gone. So it said 9 rows deleted. So let's just go back to browse. And there it's still showing ascending. So you can see it's starting with Cecilio Guante at 10 games. And so if I went the other way, it should show Johnny Ray at the beginning. So it now deleted them. And also it's now showing 34. So we removed 9 from there. So we now have 34 total in our database. So when I look at your database, I'll know if you did that right because I'll see 34 in there. Okay, next thing we're going to do here is we're just going to run some queries. Now you're going to do these on your own. So I'm just going to do like a kind of a sample one here because you should be able to go through and do these. There's only 5 here and they're pretty easy. So you're going to run a couple queries and you're going to put the answer in your text file. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to just run like a sample query. And let me go back in here because I think I'm going to open up this file. And there's my sample one. How many players had 2 or more triples? And triples aren't as common as doubles and things like that, or even home runs, because you have to get to 3 bases, so you have to have a little more speed, or you have to kind of hit it against the wall or something like that. How many players had 2 or more triples? Well, let me just do that, and I'll do that as my sample one, and I'll show you how to fill it out. So I'm going to go to SQL, and triples again are 3B, and it's a capital B, so just be aware of that. And you can see not many people have triples. There's not a lot of people with triples, so I'm going to go to SQL, and I'm going to select all from players because that's the only table we have in here. And then if you deleted this, if you double clicked on 3B, it puts that weird little quote on there. So you could either type it with 3 and a capital B yourself, or you could double click it and it'll get that kind of orange thing with those kind of almost accent looking things. And I'm going to just do greater than 2, or you could do greater or equals to 2. I guess you could do that. Greater than equals to 2. Or greater than 1, because we're talking 2 or more. So whatever. Greater than equals to 2 or greater than 1 would do the same thing. So, or I guess I'll just do that. Greater than 1. And I'll put a semicolon there. So how many people had triples? And let's see what comes up. I'll hit go. And I have 8. And let me just see. There's 8 people who had 2 or more. And you can see by their games, they're more regular players that would have 2 or more triples. So there's 8 players. So what I would do is I would go back to I'd go back here, and my answer would be 8. And I could do file save, and then I could close it up. Now obviously you're going to run all these too, so you're going to run these other queries that are here. So how many players have a batting average greater than or equal to 280? All these here. So you're going to look at these queries or look at your instructions, run those queries, and you're going to put the answers in here. So you're going to also do that. So that's all that you should have to do with this. Again, this is pretty easy and pretty quick. So we're going to start throwing more exercises in here for you to do. But you're going to do these 5 queries, and you're going to put them in your text file, and then I'm going to look in your text file and see that you got the answers right. And I'm also going to check open up your database and look and see that you have 34 entries in your database, that you deleted the ones that you had to delete. So that's all you have to do for this. So this shouldn't be that hard. If you have any questions, let me know. But I think with this video, it shouldn't. The only part's going to be that changing your table name. And again, let me just go back to that a second. Let me go to the table again. Let me just see how this works. So I'm going to click on players, and I'm going to go to operations. And remember, we said that if you change the table name, and I tried this before, and let's say I call it players 2, just for the sake of changing that, and I don't change this one or this one. I guess the best thing to do is just make sure that you also do it here, and you also do it here. That seems to be the safe thing to do, because then when you hit go, and just click on that thing, there, now it updates it here, and that's the important thing. You want to see it updated there. So make sure you just put the name in the move table, the copy table, as well as the rename table, and just hit go. And if you see a message, come up like this, just click on it. Or I guess this says, I'm not sure what this says. I can't tell if it says clear or close. I don't want to clear anything. Let me try that. I guess that works okay. Whatever you want to click on there, if that shows up. But it looks like you have to do all 3 of these. So make sure you do those when you're changing the table name. The database name, it doesn't matter, but that's the only little tricky thing there. So make sure you do that. So otherwise, you're good for EX2. So I'll put that file inside your workspace, and you should be ready to go.